All right, everybody. CIRF number 459, July 3rd to July 9th. And if you're in the United States, this obviously includes the Independence Day, July 4th. There's fireworks everywhere. And that is both literal, but also metaphorical, because there's fireworks in the astrology and lots of them. I could have called this just transformative change, but I think it's so strong. These changes and transformations are so strong this week. It's going to be interpreted in the felt sense as crisis, potentially. All right. Let's cut the music and get going. Well, first, let's have a shout out to Zen Yeti, otherwise known as Zenny. You win the Best Comment Award this week, Zenny. Congratulations. Hi, Chris. I'm grateful to be tied up into this tribe and, well, I didn't say tied up, but tied into this tribe. Yes, I agree. It's a great tribe. If you haven't already, go to Telegram and join the discussion there. Second backup is Lori. Great job, Lori, and thanks for all of your support, everyone, for comments and contributions, but it is a tribe environment. And so I appreciate all of you being here. Let's go back to our summary. Here's what we have, big picture. We have a sun in Cancer, so nurturing, emotional, intuitive. That's the ego and the identity. Sun is important in any chart, obviously. And then here are the main sky events. You have a waxing gibbous moon. We have Venus and Uranus making an exact conjunction in Taurus. We have Venus and Uranus then going into Gemini, both this week. And then they'll be making some other aspects. We also have in the background, or more in the subtle environment energies, is the mini grand trine. We'll be talking extensively about this because each leg now has multiple lines on it. And I'll explain what that means. And then we have Neptune station and retrograde this week. So putting it all together, the I-Ching overall says that it must be felt much like dispersing. I-Ching 59 line 6, which is kind of like a feeling like rescuing, but flowing, sacrificial, protective, urgent. Heroes this week might be creating a need to be a hero or feeling like you need to be a hero. Okay, so that's what that's all about, and we're going to go into the details. So, starting from big to small, we have the eclipse cycle. We are here in this little tiny banded area, blue shaded area, and it's just before a full moon. So this week is one of those rare weeks. We don't have any main, we're in between like a first quarter moon and a full moon, and it's all outside of this week, but there's plenty of other things going on. And this chart is of July. I failed to put our lunar stuff on here, but there's plenty of stuff going on, as you already know. Neptune station retrograde this week. We have Saturn and Neptune in a parallel. And so that makes that, whatever that element, they're also conjunct in Aries. And so we'll make that conjunction even more intense because of the inclinations are the same. And that's this black band here. And that parallel will last for a good 3/4 of July. So it intensifies that corner of the grand trine. Here's the indication of Venus going into Gemini. And just before that, on the same day, Venus and Uranus in late stage Taurus go exact. And then, some other, here's the sextiles, and that's with Venus. All right, let's go. Oh, this is an important chart. Normally we have like several different main kind of themes, energetic themes. And I really think it's one main theme. So you have, sun in Cancer, so people care more than they normally would have. But all the rest of this energy is very change oriented. So first you've got Neptune stations. It's a far out planet. So it's not like obvious energy. but it is in the backdrop, so change begins there. And then speaking of change, Venus and change Uranus are in a perfect conjunction, so relationships begin to change. And then you've got the whole time this very strong and strengthening mini grand trine that we've been talking about for several weeks now. And that's all supportive of this change and transformation. And then you got Venus trine Pluto once Venus goes into Gemini. So lots of change, lots of transformation, lots of forced adapting. Now, you don't have to adapt, but if you don't adapt, then things will feel like you're out of control. And what do humans do when they feel like things are out of their control? Well, any sort of escapism. They're going to try to control others. They're going to try to use drugs or alcohol. They're going to try to go find some feel-good thing instead, some chemical. And so it's important to realize and get ahead of this transformative energy and just commit. Just put it in the back of your mind, okay, need to be adapting. Or I don't like the word I need to, but I want to be adapting. If there's any change, I want to adapt seamlessly. Okay, so big picture on Thursday, the 3rd, Sun is here with, it's working on exiting a conjunction with Jupiter, but today Jupiter on the 3rd is technically conjunct with the Sun in a 7-degree orb, 6.5-degree orb. So lots of expansive feels, caring, nurturing, protecting in Cancer. All right. But this sextile is aging out on Jupiter. And so this leaves this mini grand trine. And we're going to talk extensively about one of the points is going to be the Uranus and Venus together. That's one. And this is a lot of change right in here because the change planet is changing. The change planet will be going into another sign. And then that really unlocks the other planets like Pluto in Aquarius that is in early Aquarius, so 3 degrees. And you can see that it just makes it much stronger when these planets will get into the environment or the sign that produces the degree that it's closer to where Pluto, Neptune, and Saturn all are. Now on this sextile point or the opportunity point, all the opportunities or all the sextiles, there's 2 on this side and like gobs of them over here, are going to get very strong, especially when this corner gets into Gemini. Now what you have is Neptune going station right here. I don't have the exact time, but it's on the 3rd. Neptune will basically stop its forward motion completely, start at 2 degrees, 11 minutes, and that will be until the 7th. On the 7th, which is also this week, it'll start to go retrograde. And then we'll talk about the course of Neptune and Saturn, and they're in a conjunction. This is the ideal, powerful force for self. This is the ideal self towards the best self that you can be, and it's going to include a lot of self-discipline with Saturn. There might be some restriction, less is more, but it's the ideal self, and it's pretty powerful, and it'll stay there for quite some time. These Neptune and Saturn will be together. It's when you have a conjunction, such as we have with Neptune and Saturn, for quite some time. I don't have all the timeline here, but it's almost like the delineation takes on a new archetype just for the mere fact that both of them are there. You have elements of both, but it becomes kind of like a new entity. Kind of like when we have relationship counseling, a lot of the systems that we use for therapy in couples is a third kind of entity almost that gets created when 2 people come together and start a dynamic. So it's almost like it's best to see that couple or the dynamic as a third kind of person. And so similar to that with these conjunctions. All right, moving on to Independence Day. If you're in the United States, this is July 4th, and this is when all these fireworks go off. But the astrological fireworks are just as apparent because that is kind of an archetype of Uranus. And before I talk about the delineation here, let me talk quickly about the timeline for Friday. Friday the 4th at 7:45 a.m. Central Daylight Time. That is when this is happening. Venus conjunct Uranus. Uranus kind of being a spark, a metaphoric like electrical spark or insights or rebel. But 7:45 a.m. that's when that happens. Then 10:30 a.m. that's when Venus leaves Taurus and enters into Gemini. So we need to talk about both on Friday the 4th because the sparks are happening inside of relationship, the way we relate, the way we communicate together, the dynamic, but also finance, beauty, the way we perceive or feel, maybe some value in there. And especially while Venus and Uranus are still in Taurus together, that could be a massive change for value. In other words, changing how we exchange monetary stuff. And then on top of that, you can see how Venus and Uranus together going into Gemini is going to really unlock this trine. The trine's already tight-ish over to Pluto, and Pluto's the planet of transformation. And so you've got especially when these go into Gemini, the transformation of the monetary system, I think is either going to be a big influence this week or outright changing. Of course, I can't change anything, and I don't do financial advice, even though I have an MBA in personal finance, but I don't give finance advice out, so don't be quoting me later. It's just energetically, there's a big influence all this week, with a change related to the change in which we exchange money, exchange goods, value, finance, money. All right, breaking this down even more, the Venus, Uranus in Taurus is unexpected shifts in values, money, desires, relationships, breaking free from traditional relationship patterns, feeling inspired to break free from routine, feeling inspired or energized by sudden changes. Pitfalls of this energy might be impulsive decision making in relationships, maybe in finance too. This kind of like a gambler's taking chances and risks. Potential for financial instability or unpredictability, to say the least. Then when Venus goes into Gemini, the undertow or the energy behind it feels more playful, flirtatious, more communication, witty banter, emphasis on intellectual, more compatibility. So knowledge, mental acuity, memory. Imagine a lively conversation in a bustling cafe. That's Venus going into Gemini. Excitement and anticipation for new connections and networking. And by the way, when any planet goes from one sign to another, that's another form of change, right? Because they operate on different rules. The pitfalls of Venus in Gemini might be a little more superficiality, lack of emotional or spiritual depth in relationships, maybe an overemphasis on intellectual connection at the expense of emotional intimacy, stuff like that. Then on Saturday the 5th, now we have, where's Neptune? Neptune is in a station. Okay, we talked about that. We have Venus in Gemini. We just covered that. Uranus is still in Taurus at 29 degrees, 56 minutes. So only 4 more minutes left and then we'll go spill into Gemini. But this mini grand trine, we have Venus already in the new sign, and so a very tight mini grand trine. Look, Neptune and Saturn at basically 2 degrees. They're like really close, not yet conjunct. It's going to be a while till they go perfectly conjunct. Even though Venus or Neptune is stopped and Saturn is direct, so it almost seems like they're going to start coming together, but then right then Saturn will start going station and retrograde. So they'll actually before they actually meet, for this time, they will both be going retrograde, and they'll go retrograde into Pisces. And I don't have all the times and everything, but then they will then go direct together and then create a conjunction, and then they'll be in Aries again about this space, continuing this mini grand trine with Uranus, Neptune, Saturn, and Pluto, and just overhaul. It's very transformative, and it also has this element of creating the best that you can be in Neptune and Saturn in Aries. So we might have, with this mini grand trine, the unexpected and unconventional attractions, intense and transformative connections towards the ideal version of what you seek for yourself. Or Saturn is kind of like your higher self directing you to the life that you were meant to take on or live. And that can be challenging, but especially if you've been veering off for so long, not in accordance with your higher self, well, this, like, hey, we're running out of time here. You need to get over here. And that in order to get you over there might be this big crisis thing. It feels like a crisis. Dark night of the soul, and it's just to get you back on the path. That's this energy, if needed. But if you've been following and attuning to your soul or your karmic agreement or whatever you came into this life, if you've been following that, then there's very small chance of having to go through this big disruptive thing to get you back on the path. You'd be one of the lucky ones. Not lucky because you probably did it consciously, so well done. Sunday the 6th, Venus sextile Saturn right here. This is a big deal. You got this massive sextile. Sextiles are opportunities. So what's the opportunity here? Uranus in 29 degrees, 57 minutes of Taurus, so just about to break over. The essence of these sextiles, but more importantly, the Venus sextile Saturn, because it's gone exact at 3:43 a.m. Central Daylight Time. We are harmonizing communication and commitment. We're developing a mature and responsible approach to love and relationships, and there might be, hate to say it, but a reorganization, but it's opportunistic. It's for a reason. It's not happenstance. Think of a meticulously crafted love letter written with precision and care to benefit both the relationship and self. This sextile, this group of sextiles feels like confident in the stability of the relationship, encouraged to express affection responsibly, inspired to approach love with maturity and practicality, and not selfish. All right, Monday. This is a huge day. Venus. Okay, so let's see. Where's my timing here? So we start with 3:43 a.m. and that's this chart. Wait a second. Venus trine. No. We start with 2:47 a.m. That is not this chart. Yeah, so it shows Uranus at 0 degrees Gemini, but Uranus went into Gemini back in 2:47 a.m. Central Daylight Time. And in doing so, we now have two planets in conjunction, Uranus and Venus, both in early Gemini. Then at 3:43 a.m. Central Daylight Time, Venus trine Pluto is exact. See, they're both at 3 degrees exactly. All right, so that energy is profound transformation. There it is again, change, transformation in communication and relationships. Embracing change and innovation in matters of love, attraction, beauty, money, value, monetary exchange, feeling this energy with the trine is electrified because of the Uranus aspect and also the Aquarian aspect with Pluto. Electrified and adaptable love and connections, inspired to explore unconventional ideas and concepts in love, and empowered to embrace change and transformation in relationships. But like we talked about, Uranus in Gemini at 2:47, this is eccentric and unique as it can be, but it's in new ways of thinking, right? New knowledge, new insights, and talking about it, like talkie, chatting it up, Gemini. And so this is starting to spread like wildfire, the new insights coming from unique and eccentric and change-oriented Uranus. We might see some unconventional and eccentric, out-of-the-box thinking and communication. We're going to get sudden insights and mental breakthroughs, embracing change and adapting to fast curveballs in life, hitting it out of the park. Imagine with this energy, just Uranus going into Gemini is a mad scientist concocting groundbreaking theories. So we put it all together. Forgot to put this on. Hold on. No. Okay, so I got to do this first. Sorry about this, people. There. All right, putting it all together. We have Uranus in the background. That's the shock and awe. That's the electric, and it's up here in the mind. There's no coincidence that this electricity is flowing through that mind, metaphorically through the image. But you have relationships with Venus, and it's electrified, and there's change all throughout this. Transformation with the trine, transformation with trine over to Pluto, a lot of restlessness and constant need for mental stimulation, liberation from limiting beliefs and thought patterns. There's Aquarian edge all throughout this, and that's the Uranus piece and the Pluto and Aquarius piece. All right, Tuesday the 8th. Let's focus now on Neptune. Neptune, you can see, is retrograde now. And now there is 15 minutes in between Saturn and Neptune, and yet these will not conjunct anytime soon. Right? Okay, by the way, Uranus trine Pluto, because we covered Venus trine Pluto, it's important to know that Uranus trine Pluto will go exact on 17 July. So that's coming up soon, in a couple of weeks, a few weeks. This is going to be after the full moon. And that's going to be a big, powerful change thing. So this change theme, it's going to be here for a while, right? At least, oh gosh, can't even put the time on it, because this Neptune and Pluto, which is also very change-oriented, transformative, is going to be going exact like many times over the next 8 years. So this change is now just starting, just giving us a kind of a wake-up call. We need to be adaptable for the next, decade. I mean, it's probably best to just be adaptable, but especially now. All right, Wednesday the 9th. There's nothing new here. There's the mini grand trine. You got Sun still in Cancer. So you got both parties, Uranus and Venus now officially in Gemini. So nothing new really. So I'd like to take this time to show you the full moon. Now this is not Wednesday anymore. This is the 10th. But I want to give you a heads up. So just, not a full delineation, but the full moon is pretty much free and clear. There's not a lot of tight alignments to it. And so we have a full moon in Capricorn. And then we have the mini grand trine. And yet Saturn and Neptune are not conjunct still. Interesting, eh? So there you have it for the astrology. Again, that was 10 July. That goes beyond the window that we're covering here, but it's important. It's a full moon. Okay, so the I-Ching says 59 with change line 6. So that creates a profound emotional transformation where dissolution becomes purposeful and rescue, feeling like purposefully rescuing in salvation, whatever those feelings are. Initial feeling of barriers melting away intensifies into an urgent, almost desperate need to help others escape danger or stagnation. Again, this isn't saying that you need to do this. This is saying that it's recognizing that there's so much change and transformation that you're going to feel like you need to be helping others. And why all this extra energy? Well, because I don't think I really accentuated this, but there's a waxing gibbous moon. So what normally feels like a yang type of energy is applied towards this change, right? So you don't want, it's not a selfless energy, but it's so change oriented. You start to be worried and care. I remember Sun in Cancer, you start caring about how others are faring. And so there's this visceral sensation of being called to action where gentle flow of dispersion suddenly becomes a rushing current of compassion and protective instinct. Doesn't that make sense given the energies? The emotions shift from personal release to collective responsibility, a deep diving feeling that you must use your newfound freedom and clarity to pull others from harm's way. It feels like emerging from water only to immediately dive back to save someone drowning, where your own liberation becomes meaningful only when shared. Again, not saying you have to. This is not the solution. This is saying that it's going to probably feel like that given the energies. All right, let's whoopsie there, here. All right, let's talk about the influence, putting all that together that we talked about. What a magical Independence Day 2025 awaits. Venus and Uranus dance together on July 4th, sparking beautiful transformations in love, values, and financial flow. As they gracefully glide into chatty Gemini, they amplify an extraordinary mini grand trine involving 5 powerful planets, giving you a stunning preview of the 8-year cosmic liberation journey that's just beginning to unfold. With the sun nestled in nurturing Cancer, your heart outflows with compassion and deep emotional connection. The waxing gibbous moon bathes everyone in responsive, dynamic energy, making this perfect timing to embrace new possibilities. Get ready for fireworks, everybody, both in the sky and in your soul. All right, let's cover the solution now. We're going to be talking about I-Ching 29. It's hard to see it over there. The waxing gibbous moon. We're going to be talking about the Rave holding together, and we'll talk about how we came up with the Rave mandala, like why the gate 8 line 6, and then we have Sidereal Taurus. I'll explain all that first. So here we are. We put our change line in, and we get hexagram 29 of the I-Ching. Now we're looking for behaviors of persistent forward movement despite overwhelming obstacles and dangerous circumstances. Basically, what this is saying is even though there's going to be changes and transformations, keep on keeping on, keep on going. Demonstrate remarkable resilience by continuing to flow around barriers like water finding its way through rock, never stopping but adapting their approach when met with resistance. And also, deep introspection and careful navigation through treacherous terrain. Never let a crisis go to waste, right? Well, I'm not saying a crisis because it's going to happen, okay? It's going to feel like crisis just because of the magnitude of the energy of change, okay? Now, there might be a crisis, and in which case these things also apply, where you should go deep down into your soul, deep within, and do some deep work here. Don't let a crisis go to waste, meaning that it's not about what you can gain out here in the material world. It's about what you can spiritually gain in here with wisdom and mental acuity and knowledge, commitments, values, everything. All right. Now here's our conversion chart, and we chose the very beginning of Gemini as our conversion chart. And why? Because both of these planets, you'll have two instances where it lights up this line. First by Venus and then by Uranus. So that is gate 8 of the Rave mandala, and line, I forget what it is, line 6. And then we have Sidereal Taurus. Okay, now we're going to triangulate. First, we talk about gate 8, line 6. What is gate 8? It is the role model holding together, and it's meant to help synergize how we apply our individual efforts, contribute that to group goals. Now, line 6 is more about communion, where certainty grows out of harmony. The increment says the awareness of patterns that ensures correct timing, the gift of knowing when to contribute creatively. But then on the downside, ruled by Pluto, is doubt, which may engender regret, even in the most ideal circumstances. Uncertainty in timing and regret despite circumstances. Okay, what does this all mean? Basically, this does correlate very strongly to the influence and this kind of need to help and need to care and turn around and help the next person. And it's not just a, dog eat dog or just as long as I survive. That's not this energy that was both in the astrology, but also now in the Rave. It's about contributing, but contributing not just haphazardly, not just pouring on self-sacrifice and then just doing it all. There's a certain rhyme and a reason. There's a timing to it. And then there's a downside if you kind of go overboard or pick the wrong time. So let's balance this out. And we start with the potentials of the increment. The potentials of the increment is the ability to create deep harmony in groups, the gift for sensing collective timing, capacity to bring disparate elements into cohesive contribution. So knowing when to contribute. This is not the what should I contribute. That's a different line. This is making sure that when you do contribute, you're maybe even intuitive, it's at the right time. Because you all know, if you do it at the wrong time, you could be the perfect contribution that was exactly what the group really needs. But if it's the wrong time, you'll meet a brick wall, and you'll meet resistance. All right, so Venus and Pluto are our rulers, and so this side, the Venus side, provides the gift of knowing when to contribute creatively. Venus brings beauty and harmony to this line, and it's the way in which she gracefully contributes. So to make sure that this is enhanced and not exaggerated too much, practice mindfulness to better perceive patterns in group dynamics, to be able to see when is the right time. Cultivate aesthetic appreciation to enhance your sense of harmony. This one is the foot stamper. Join groups where your contributions are valued and timed as well, and study cycles and rhythms. All right, now on the Pluto side, this is the decrement, and this brings doubt. And Pluto brings transformation through destruction and controlled demolition, which sometimes creating unnecessary doubt in harmonious situations. But basically, the Pluto is there to know when to stop. So the Venus is there to know when the timing is to start. Pluto is here to know when to cut it off and don't keep going. Even though everything feels right, now is the time to stop for whatever reason. Okay, that's the Pluto. Practice letting go of past regrets through conscious release exercises. Develop trust in your contributions through affirmations. But in your affirmations, it's never good to just override intuition, even though you know it's this way is the way it should be. You're over here stating affirmations to try to do a variety of things. Don't override intuition, basically. You could also get help, trusted advisor. There's the mentor program, and at work or career. And there you have it. Any questions on the Rave? So let's go to our summary. And this is what we should be doing. Dig deep. Number 1, dig deep and stand strong. Okay? That brings in our Sidereal Taurus. It also honors the I-Ching. And we can use the energy from the Yang. So from the waxing gibbous moon. Dig deep, stand strong. Okay, number 2, find the tribe where your contributions are valued. Remember to contribute when the timing is right. Learn the cycles about timing and use your past. Think about your past contributions and similar experiences. What about the timing? When does it make sense? But do not self-sacrifice unceasingly. So we need to know when to stop. That's also timing. All right, so look at that as well. Number 3, dive deep within yourself, probing for self-understanding and inner child deconditioning, becoming more of your true self. Even though the lunar phase is much more of an expressive and yang type of energy this week, this triangulation suggests a rare opportunity to bring the unconscious into practical awareness. And that's a good thing. Sidereal Taurus brings your 5 senses and uses 5 senses to be aware. And so if you can bring what's deep down inside in the dangerous depths within, you can have this in your conscious awareness, practical awareness, especially given the expected changes and transformations caused by Venus, Uranus, and Pluto's transits. Don't let any crisis go to waste, right? Now, again, I'm not saying that a crisis is going to happen. Even just the transformative and change energy can feel so strongly this week that becomes the crisis. All right, social layout. Dangerous depths, that's not very social. 2, holding together, that is entirely social. And then waxing gibbous moon is, generally more social. And Taurus can go either way, can really like it alone, can need that social esprit and good times. So it's really up to you, but I think it's definitely more of a social time, and yet it's a little less social than normal. I'll put it that way. Normal for this waxing gibbous moon. What's normally is lots of yang, lots of expression, lots of going out and getting things done and getting started on your goals and your lunar goals. But it's going to be a big week. And happy Independence Day to everybody in the United States. That's all I'll say there. And so adapt, overcome, stand strong. We got this. And then we will see you on Wednesday for a Dreambot report. Take care, everybody. Love, light to all. Namaste.